Hi, this is Greg McCoach, editor of the Mining Speculator. Welcome to the Metals Investor Forum in Vancouver, Canada. Looking forward to being able to interact with everybody. And my presentation has been altered a little bit since January, and it's a lot has happened since then. We've talked about wars and rumors of wars. Well, little did we know we'd be involved with that. So with this Ukraine-Russian situation. Anyway, I'll get going on my presentation. This will be a 20-minute presentation. And yeah, looking forward to any comments, emails, texts after I get done. So uranium, I wanted to make a comment here about uranium. Many of you know that I've written a newsletter called the U308 report. And when I was suddenly bullish on uranium, I think it was back in 2017, I started the newsletter again. But as often can be the case with our prognostications, we're a little early. I was early, and it just didn't materialize for various reasons. But now I think uranium is finally going to go. And I just wanted to talk here briefly why I think uranium is finally going to move. Uranium futures here last week traded up above $51 per pound, not far from the near 10-year high of 51.60, touched on March 2nd, amid concerns while soaring oil prices and the uncertain future energy supply in Europe has led investors to ramp up possible fossil fuel alternatives, right? And uranium is, of course, one of the big ones. And then the escalated attacks and ceasefire violations from Russian forces in Ukraine has revamped concerns that the U.S. could consider sanctioning nuclear fuel imports. And the U.S. nuclear energy sector produces 20% of the country's electricity and relies on Russia and its allies for roughly half the uranium powering its plants. So that's another huge factor. And meanwhile, higher fossil fuel prices and efforts of reducing the dependency on Russian energy enhance the global outlook for nuclear energy. So this is all why I believe now uranium is in a bull market. I was trying to get a 10-year chart, but I couldn't copy it off the internet. If you go to Numerico, look at their 10-year uranium chart. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's a perfect U, and we're on this end now, and it's going up. And so the chart looks very, very bullish. And I would have to say that uranium is finally where I thought it was going to be, unfortunately, in 2017, but it looks like it's happening finally. I always have said in my newsletter, I said, look, there's not a lot of companies you need to be involved with. Even though companies have made major moves already, there's still much more upside in the uranium space. So you may want to pay attention. The two companies that I had highlighted, again, I've said you only need a small handful of companies. The two that I always promoted, and talked about the most, one of them has gone up 10x since 2017, and the other's gone up like 4x. So, but there's plenty more upside. So I just wanted to mention that before I get into the precious metals here. And yeah, so gold is now in breakout mode. We were up almost $70 this morning at the open. Gold is clearly over $2,000 an ounce. Again, the three main factors that I mentioned in January still hold. Of course, massive inflation is showing up in the numbers. There's economic chaos and confusion everywhere. And the wars and rumors of war card, which didn't have as much clout as it has now as I'm speaking about it. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. The massive inflation, the Fed is caught, right? Gold is going up against all fiat currencies worldwide. And the reason is because this inflation, there's nothing, the Fed has no tool other than to raise interest rates, and they can't raise interest rates. Why? Because even a 1% increase in the interest rate causes the interest paid by the US government on a yearly basis to go up by 300 billion, right? So to really thwart inflation, you have to go to a number that is higher than the real rate of inflation. And even taking 7%, that's very conservative. It's actually higher than that in my view, but just taking 7%, the Fed would have to raise interest rates higher than 7% to actually have any control over inflation. And they're not going to do that. Why? Because 8%, 8 times 300 billion for each point would be $2.4 trillion in additional interest that the US government would have to pay on its debt. It's game over. That's it. So this is how important this is to understand, and how as we've always talked about, the end game is coming, and it is, and we're dealing with it now. So the US government's dealing with it. Remember, inflation is not the rise of prices. It is the falling value of money, of our currencies, your purchasing power. Smart investors are buying tangible assets, of course, physical gold, precious metals, and instead of the fiat funny money and currencies of governments. So based on historical data, when big inflations occur historically, investors move from paper currencies and go into precious metals, real estate, land, raw materials, collectibles, PP&E stocks, None of these items, of course, can be created out of thin air as dollars and other political currencies can. We could also talk about fine art, antiques, classic cars, rare books, and more. I have in back of me here, I'll show you a beautiful painting by an artist down here in the States that goes out into the Western United States and paints landscapes. And he calls this one Tenacity. I have several of his paintings. You see the tree, right? It looked like it was going to die, but yeah, it's got one leg going, right? Well, that's like the tenacity of gold, right? Despite government efforts to keep it in line and keep it under control, they can't. It drives them nuts. I love it because all these corrupt buffoons that run government, the rising gold price shows that what they're doing is wrong. And this is a wake-up call to the people to pay attention. Gold's going much, much higher now. And now silver will also play catch up. So this is going to be a fun ride. Those of us in the precious metal world are going to make big money once again. Richard Maybury quote from his January newsletter: governments and the mainstream press want you to believe that the culprit causing rising prices is greedy, evil businesses. Unbelievable. If you believe that, that is an absolute lie. Wake up. It's the Fed and the US government creating money out of thin air to pay for things they can't afford. That's why we have inflation, period, right? Unbelievable. I can't believe people actually listen to these news organizations anymore. It is simply that politicians and bureaucrats, especially those in the Federal Reserve, are expanding the amount of money. When the quantity of money is increased, the value of each currency unit goes down. Easy, simple, no complication here. There is a reason counterfeiting is illegal around the world. Counterfeiters increase the money supply, thereby debasing the currency. The FBI and similar organizations worldwide hunt these people down and put them in jail for a very long time. But when the political types who make counterfeiting illegal for criminals make it okay for themselves, they call it monetary policy. Wow. Hello. I'll skip that. The production of tangible assets is restrained by the laws of physics and chemistry. This money creation is now at the critical moment. It is going to affect a lot of people worldwide. It is going to be a very negative event. Unless you own the physical precious metals, you are going to be caught holding too much paper, too many overblown bubble market assets. You want to get out of these overblown stock markets and these currencies that are going to take a huge hit to the true purchasing power of their money. As investors and citizens, we are faced with the greatest economic chaos and confusion we have ever faced in our lifetimes. There's going to be major problems ahead. How much longer before the real trouble? It could happen at any moment. But I agree with Daniel Estulin and Catherine Austin Fitts, who say year and a half max before this all blows up. That would be the absolute longest they can see it continuing. So the next year in particular is going to be a real concern. Greatest chaos and confusion. There's massive wealth imbalances. That's the data on average households. Public markets are at epic proportions. The house I mentioned in Coeur d'Alene, my business partner bought a year and a half ago for $1.4 million. He was just offered $4.5 for it. He doesn't even want to sell it. The Sotheby's is calling people up and saying, would you sell your house for $4.5 million? That's a gigantic bubble. Heavily corrupted and divided governments and citizens, crony corporations, grossly divided populations, politically, vax versus non-vax, social division, hatred fueled by media, news organizations, and corporations, the divide and conquer strategy of the people who run the puppet politicians and run our world. It's all come to a head. Wars and rumors of war. That, I mentioned this and some people kind of thought, oh, Greg, what are you talking about? Well, the biggest threat, of course, is the Russian-Ukraine situation, but I maintain Beijing and the US is not far behind. And so these are major situations. We're seeing how this is affecting us. I mean, it's so similar. What Russia is doing is so similar to what Hitler started to do. He started to just get very aggressive and get people to agree with him that he could take certain lands. And then when they didn't agree with him, he would sign false agreements and then do what he wanted to do and take the lands anyway. So very similar, very similar. I mean, all of this is just power junkies, right? All these buffoons who run our governments, right? Why do we vote for these people? It's amazing to me. It doesn't matter, Republican or Democrat in the US, conservative, liberal, wherever, right? They're all working for the same people who want to destroy the good life that we've known. So anyway, in the US, revolution and civil war is actually possible. Richard Maybury had some incredible comments here in his March newsletter. He was a teacher, and he just says, as a former teacher, I can testify that most youngsters come out of high schools and college drenched in socialist thought. I have heard many parents say something like, I have spent a fortune sending my kid to college, and now he hates everything I stand for. A new book, American Marxism by Mark Levin, is about the US power junkies who are bound and determined to destroy the American system of natural liberty. There's going to be a big blowback on this as we get into this, but the schools are their most powerful weapon. One result is that the words liberal, progressive, woke have become code for Marxist socialism. The lesser of the two evils, both parties, in my view, there's no solution to man-made solutions or voting for Republicans or Democrats in the US. It's all the same craziness. The lesser of two evils is still evil, and voting for it makes it grow with an even greater evil. So people have to wake up, in my view. America will turn around when and only when the people again become dedicated to the two natural law principles that make civilization possible. Do all you have agreed to do, and do not encroach on other persons or their property, and demand that they be applied to everyone, including people in government. All men are created equal. I can't say that loudly enough. So this moment of, this division that the powers that run our world have created, this divide and conquer strategy has worked excellent for them, because people believe the media, which is trained to hate, make us all hate one another. We need to be banding together as a people and fight against them, right? But of course, anybody that says something like that is highly toxic. So I guess I'm toxic. Anyway, all men are created equal. So, governments hate each other. They're like street gangs. They're always getting us in these wars that people don't want to be involved with. So it's just the way it is. Based on everything I'm seeing, gold is getting ready to make the next big jump to another new all-time high. It's not coming, it's happening. It's happening. It's going to be great for our precious metal mining stocks as these three items all roar at the same time. Wars and rumors of wars, chaos and confusion, massive inflation that's going to keep unfolding week after week, month after month. Gold's going to way higher levels than where we are right now. And silver is about to play catch up. Remember, I've said it, March 8th, 2022, silver will be at a 15-to-1 ratio with gold. Do you realize where that would be right now? $2,000 gold divided by 15. Do the calculation. It's a big number. It's about to happen. So with that, we're about to witness the biggest run we have ever witnessed in our precious metal junior mining share market in the next several years. I said that in January. I repeat it. It's underway. You're going to start to see our junior mining stocks move. And with that, my two newsletters are the Mining Speculator and the Insider Alert. To subscribe, just go to discoverynexus.com. Thank you for listening.